Welcome to Illuminating Catholics, podcast of the Diocese of Sioux City. I'm Dawn Prosser, Director of Communications for the Diocese. Together with Carmen Bauer of the Faith Formation Office, we will shed light upon topics of faith in the modern church. Our guests include Catholic clergy, religious sisters, and other experts in their fields to help us understand what's happening in the church today. We will explore issues, even the tough ones, and to find answers to common questions about Catholicism. Thank you for joining us for today's Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church.
Hello and welcome back to the Illuminating Catholics podcast. I am Carmen Bauer, the Director of Faith Formation for the Diocese of Sioux City.
And I'm Dawn Prosser. I am Director of Communications for the Diocese.
Thank you so much for all of our listeners who follow along, and we encourage you to subscribe if you haven't so that you don't miss any of our guests and the opportunities to learn more about the faith. Today, we are so excited to welcome two sisters of the Presentation of the Blessed Virgin Mary, a long-standing presence in the Diocese of Sioux City. The congregation is celebrating 150 years since their founding in Dubuque.
Welcome, sisters. We have Sister Jane and we have Sister Joy, and we're so glad to have you with us. I wondered if you would each want to introduce yourselves and tell us a little bit about your background, and I'll let you fight over who gets to go first.
I'm Sister Jane Conrad. I grew up in the little town of Zering, Iowa, in the Dubuque Diocese. I entered the Presentation Sisters in 1976 and went to Clark College for my undergrad and taught in various schools to Dubuque Diocese and Sioux City Diocese, and ended up in Nebraska, and then ended up as a chaplain in Yankton, South Dakota. I just come back from Yankton, and now I'm back in Dubuque and in between ministries at this time.
Okay, thank you, Sister.
And I'm Sister Joy Peterson. I am a native of the Sioux City Diocese. I was born in Fort Dodge. My parents are both from little towns south of Fort Dodge. So I was baptized in the Moreland Church a long time ago. And then we lived in Estherville for a few years and then moved back to the Fort Dodge area. And I attended elementary school at Corpus Christi in Fort Dodge. So I'm a graduate of Corpus Christi. And then I began high school at St. Edmunds. And then we moved to Mason City. So I had a different experience. And that was actually my first introduction to Presentation Sisters, because I'd had the BBM sisters all the way through elementary school. And so that was an opportunity for a different insight into religious community and life. I also entered right out of high school and graduated from Clark College with a degree in English, and then began teaching. So I taught for a few years in Whittemore, and then came back to Dubuque for a few years and did some teaching and then some community work, and then went back and taught at Algona Garrigan for a number of years. So some of the kids that were in the lower grades in Whittemore were now upper grade kids at Garrigan. So that was a big delight for me. And then I came back to Dubuque for some more community service, and then came back out to the Sioux City Diocese and worked for several years in pastoral ministry in Spirit Lake. Yeah, with Father Claire Bass and then Father Al Grendler, and I just the best memories of being with them. And then I came back to Dubuque and did some more community ministry. I've kind of had opportunities to be in a variety of different experiences. And for several years, I worked for the Cincinnati Dominican Sisters as their justice promoter. And then I came back to the Presentations as a justice promoter. So now I'm kind of semi-retired. I spend a lot of time, I'm on the board for the International Presentation Association. So I spend a fair bit of time working with that international board and the establishment of some new offices in the organization. And I am also a part-time member of the corporation as the congregational treasurer. So it's kind of keep my hand in a few different little things, and then try to spend other time reading and enjoying family and traveling when I the opportunity.
We're so grateful for the service of both of you sisters of the presentation in the diocese, and listening to you both. I've got a little bit of history with the presentations, and they do keep you busy. You are always in ministry, always working, and it's been a pleasure getting to know many of the sisters of the presentation and say hello to them as we go. So thank you for sharing your stories.
So as we celebrate 150 years in Dubuque, can you take us back to your founder in Cork and how the community was established?
Our foundress is Nano Nagel. She was in Cork, Ireland. She was a family that was pretty much a well-to-do family and had quite a bit of clout in the area. And she liked to party. She liked to be out about with the social. Her sister Anne kept her grounded and would always be looking for those who needed a little extra hand up. And she would remind Nano of the little things that need to be done for other people. And she bought a bolt of silk, and Anne took it and sold it, and gave the money to a poor family that needed food. And it kind of jolted Nano into saying, oh, there's more to life. So she went about the city of Cork in the penal times where Catholics could not be educated, could not have any, children could not be educated or learn to read, write, anything. If you were arrested and put into jail. She was very adventurous in taking the risk of going around and educating the children of the city of Cork. And before the penal codes were lifted, she had 7 little schools started in the city of Cork. And nobody realized it because they thought it was just this old lady walking around town and whatever. And at night, she would go about looking for people who had issues with illness. And she then became known as the Lady of the Lantern because she would go out at night visiting the sick, making sure they had food and things that they need to get well. And so that's how she got to be known as the Lady of the Lantern. So she wanted to start a community, but at that time, everything was cloistered. And she says, you can't teach children in a convent. You've got to go out to them. And so she was one of the first ones to not be cloistered. And she fought the bishop. She, fought to make sure that her community was not cloistered. So she started the group on Christmas Eve, 1775. And with four girls, and then 100 years later, our foundress, Mother Vincent Hennessy, left Ireland from Cork and came and started our Dubuque Foundation with 3 others. And so we came to the bishop was visiting Ireland and asked for sisters to come to teach the Irish immigrants of Dubuque. And so 4 years later, Mother Vincent Hennessy, which no related, but same name, came with 3 other people and came to start our foundation here. When they got here, there was no bishop in the house, but his brother was able to direct the sisters around the corner to the Visitation Sisters. And so the Visitation Sisters took us in for the first couple months of our being here. And then the bishop arranged for the house in Key West to be used as our first convent. The priest was supposed to move in. They were building it was supposed to be a rectory, but we moved in instead. And so we started the convent and our first school in Key West. And so that's how we began. So 150 years later, there's still a little school there in Key West. It's now a daycare, and they use the building for religious ed. I got the privilege of living in the house, the original mother house, until it was torn down because they had to make room to build onto the school. And so it was a real joy to be able to live in the original house that the sisters came from Ireland in. And now that as time went on, the visitation sisters no longer are taking people, and there's 2 visitation sisters left, and they now live with us.
Oh, really?
And so it's come full circle that they took us in, and now that they're not able to live on their own, they live here in the house with us, and they are part of us.
That's so interesting.
It's been a real joy. Yeah, it's been a full circle for us.
Oh, it definitely sounds like it. Well, it's so inspiring to hear that story of her just saying yes to helping one family led to helping more families, leading to founding schools in a difficult time. And, now all of a sudden we have your presence here in Iowa. It's amazing what God can do when we just say one yes at a time.
Yes. Key West, for those of you on the other side of the state, you might say is a suburb of Dubuque.
Okay.
It's just like 2 miles up.
Yeah.
The city limits are just right beside each other. So not to be confused with they're going to Key West, Florida.
Exactly.
I always think about
We should make that distinction.
Yeah. Yeah. For them to have come to such a cold place, they moved out there in January. I think it can be damp and cold in Ireland, but I can't imagine they were prepared for the winters of Iowa and the experiences of all of that, because the house was pretty basic, basically sawhorses when they moved into it. So they were pretty bold and brave, leaving Ireland and coming across the country on a train, which had to have been a lot of unknowns for them. And one of our original founders, sisters, was last name was Howley, and one of her, I think it was her brother, was a priest of the Sioux City Diocese. He died a number of years ago, but so I don't know if there's a bit of a migration of the Howley family from this little town called Mooncoin in Ireland and settling in Iowa, because after the first sister, 2 of the nieces also came from Ireland and to join the community in Dubuque.
It was interesting, I think, in the press release we got about your 150th, Sister Carmen Hernandez had made the comment that the 4 immigrant sisters that came, they didn't have immigration status and many hardships, so something we probably can't even imagine. And then she also related it to some of the hardships that our immigrants today are facing. So we always say there's more to learn about the faith, and even our conversation today, learning so much more about the Presentation Sisters, just when I thought I knew everything, but I don't.
Over the years, we have taught in many dioceses around the United States. We've had a lot of schools in the Sioux City Diocese that we did staff. I had the privilege of teaching in Clare at St. Matthew's and at Danbury Catholic. And when our sisters, when we had been here for about 12 years, we actually sent sisters to Danbury in 1896. And we were there through 1950. And in that time frame, Presentation Sisters were there, as well as Dubuque Franciscans were there. And so around 1948-49, they decided they couldn't support 2 communities of sisters at that time. And so we were asked to go to Storm Lake in 1950. And then the Dubuque Franciscans, I think, went to Carroll. Don't quote me on that one. But they were asked to go somewhere else. And then the Clinton Franciscans came and staffed the school at Danbury Catholic. And then in 1997, I got the privilege of going back to Danbury, and I taught there for 8 years.
Oh, wonderful.
So it was a joy to go back, and the whispers around town was, our sisters are back.
Oh.
So it was really sweet, because a lot of the senior citizens knew some of the sisters that were still here at Mount Loretto, and the sisters would ask, how is Danbury? Because they really liked it a lot, being there.
Well, I was going to ask, do you still keep in touch with quite a few of your students or people you've interacted with in ministry over the years?
Indirectly, yes. Every once in a while, I'll come upon them and I'll say, "Now, tell me your name." I taught first and second graders, so they've changed an awful lot from first and second. And I've come across several of them now that I'm back in Dubuque. I hope to work at the daycare back out in Key West in the beginning of the year if everything works out. One of the assistant director was a student I coached softball with when I taught in Key West, and I've met up with several folks from out there since the little time I've been back in Dubuque.
So many connections.
Yeah, one of the blessings of this 150th is, and the publicity that's gone out, is the finding people reaching out and from places, Spirit Lake and here in Dubuque for me, that saying, remember when we had these experiences. And so so it's not just the whole congregation at 150, but it's our own gift to remember and recall the wonderful people we've known along the way.
Mm-hmm. You've really made an impact on the Diocese of Sioux City and our schools and our parishes. So that's why it's so fun to have you on our podcast to talk about that. And I hope that a lot of your former students or friends listen in. I'm thinking I should put your emails in the show notes so if they want to contact you. So I do know, I mean, a huge impact with teaching and staffing schools. And then even in my time in Storm Lake, kind of saw a shift in a lot of the ministry. And the Presentation Sisters have become so diverse in what you do that I wouldn't give it justice, of course. Would you want to tell the listeners a little bit about your diverse ministries, both here and abroad currently?
Well, our sisters have, in the 1960s, I think it was, when there was an invitation for the Church of North America to send missionaries to South America, two of our sisters ventured into Bolivia, and that was really our first experience of a foreign mission. And in fact, we still have two sisters in Bolivia at this time. It's been over 50 years now that we've had a presence in this small little town in the southern part, so close to Argentina that you'll actually see some of the gauchos that people read about in their history books and in the neighborhood. So our sisters served there, and then Sister Diana Belong served in Tanzania with the Holy Spirit Sisters. I know there are Holy Spirit Sisters in the Carroll area. So she worked for several years in Tanzania, teaching English and theology to the student sisters there. And then our sisters have gone also to Guatemala, and Sister Rita Menard, who actually left Storm Lake to go to Guatemala, served for 10 years there, and Sister Marge Healy joined her after a bit. So that created some connections. I know when I was in Spirit Lake, and for a number of years afterwards, because Rita came to speak to the Spirit Lake community, once a month there would be a collection, and a second collection in Spirit Lake that would go toward supporting Rita's work in Guatemala. So there was a strong connection of that experience of bringing the Church of Guatemala into the Church of Spirit Lake, and a reverse of that. So I think that's something we've often tried to do with the ministries of our sisters, that it's not they're just in Bolivia, but that Bolivia matters to our communities and our partners back here in the United States, so that there's an awareness of the ministries that could happen. We have sisters right now working in New Orleans with homeless women, working in Mississippi, where there's a lot of poverty and lack of education. So working in education programs in that area. A sister who's Gina Folletta, who also taught at St. Mary's in Storm Lake, is preparing student teachers to be math educators through Penn State, working there. So we have sisters all across as we age, there are fewer of us. So Sister Rochelle was a lobbyist with organizations in Washington, D.C. for almost 30 years, lobbying on behalf of basic human needs. She worked with Network, which is a Catholic sisters organization. So a lot of partnering, and these days I think we would say our partners extend to the religious community. So for instance, in Dubuque, right now we're running an ad every Sunday in the newspaper about the Holy Family being an immigrant family and welcoming the immigrant. We're no longer as kind of in silos as I think we used to be, even in our parishes. As Jane was alluding to, there was sometimes a German parish and then an Irish parish, and now we're working, I think, to be one people of God.
Would you want to share your work with the Lantern Center, or the sisters' work with the Lantern Center?
Yeah, absolutely, because I know, Dawn, your husband has helped. He gave a presentation for us a few years ago. The Lantern Center is celebrating 22 years of service. In 25 years or so ago, we felt we wanted to do some kind of outreach in the city of Dubuque. So a couple of our sisters really kind of walked the streets, which would be sort of what Nano did, talking to people like, what are the needs? Where are the needs of people? And it happened that there was a school that had been vacated, and we felt that the call to open that center that would reach out to the immigrant people. And now I think people would be surprised. I think it's close to 90 different countries, languages of people who come to the Lantern Center for tutoring, for preparation, for citizenship in U.S. citizenship. There's a program for that. Sometimes there's like mothers. Just today I was reading a little story about a Guatemalan mother who came and brought her two little girls because she had no daycare for them while she was being tutored, and now she's a tutor herself. So it's like the giving keeps giving, and the Lantern Center has a lot of outreach in the city and a lot of support. And not just the Lantern Center. Sister Carmen Hernandez established La Luz Hispania, which was in Hampton, Iowa, and Sister Paula Schweniger does a program in Dyersville called Home, which are both outreaches to immigrant communities. So what happened at the Lantern Center in terms of tutoring is now being replicated in a variety of small towns around Dubuque. The Lantern folks kind of do a little tutoring to other tutors, and it seems to be spreading substantially, and we're really thrilled to have the founding word on that, the Lantern, but also that it keeps expanding and growing out because the need is so serious.
It is. That's exciting and wonderful work that you ladies do at the center. I did want to just touch a little bit on, you do some work promoting caring for the environment, if anybody wanted to touch on that.
We are sponsoring a plant a tree and sponsor a tree during our 150th celebration. So we have on November 13th, we kicked off a tree planting challenge. If it's to replicate our 150 years, to hope to plant 150 trees. And we started in Key West. We have a tree planted there already. And people can either plant a tree and let us know about it, or you can sponsor a tree through our website. And I think you have that information that you'll put out.
Yeah, we'll put it in the show notes so people can link on it, sister.
Yeah, that'd be great. So it's a way of the environment, enhancing our environment with trees and nature, and we want to really take care of our earth and help to know that the trees are a major environmental need, and hopefully that will help us get the word out to plant a tree and let us know where it is, and we're hoping that places where we have been will plant a tree, even if we're not there, so that we can let people know that we're thinking about them and they're thinking about us.
I like that.
We've done some other, several years ago, we built a home here on the property for our formation community, and we put geothermal in for the system for that house. And I currently now live in the house where the visitation sisters live. And last year, solar panels were put on that, and we're building rain gardens. So we have about 45 acres of land here, and including a large pond, but we have other spaces of a field, we call it, and we're putting rain gardens and going to try to create some prairies, so uprooting the invasive species, perhaps you might say, that have gone, so digging down and replanting, so we'll have some different exposures of a multiplicity of life that's more native, actually, to this area. We planted a tree out in front that's an oak tree, and in our heritage, as and with our Irish roots, the oak tree is a very famous kind of historic and tree of myth, I guess you might even say, and it's also a kind of oak would be native to this part of the state. So we put a new oak tree out in front of our house, and we're hoping to add other oak trees around even the property. But so we have a committee called Laudato Si Committee, which is working to educate our sisters and associates and staff about the church, teaching about integral ecology, as well as what it just means in terms of our everyday living and care for our planet. But it's important that we have the voice of faith in the words of Pope Francis, the integral ecology that we want to promote for people. And so having this beautiful property, we have plenty of opportunity to offer that as a teaching for the neighborhood too.
I had no idea. That's wonderful. That's wonderful work.
And as a sidebar, go along with the oak tree, we got to go to do our pilgrimage in 2000 for our 125th anniversary. And when we went to Mooncoin, there was an oak tree there that was there when Mother Vincent Hennessy left to come to the United States. So that oak tree it was beautiful. I thought, oh my gosh, it's green. It was just beautiful. And I thought that heritage of the oak tree is very much alive for us.
Wonderful. So speaking of your history and your 150th, do you want to tell us about the March performance at Clark University as part of your 150th celebration?
Last summer, I got to experience this woman who's an actress from Cork, Ireland, and who a few years ago, the Presentation Sisters, who I'll just back up a little bit. Presentation Sisters are in 23 countries around the world. And of course, coming from Ireland, there's a substantial presence still in Ireland and near Dublin and further south in Cork. And at the center in Cork, the sisters have created a memorial that is a place for visiting with some of the original buildings that were there within, not exactly, well, the church that Nana worshipped in, but there other buildings have been built around that. So that center hired this actress to do a one-woman play on the life of Nano. And she actually spent a couple of years immersing herself in Nano's life story, and she does this magnificent story of a good portion of Nano's life. And I when I experienced her, and it was in St. John's, Newfoundland, which is the first place that the sisters who left Ireland moved out. They moved to Newfoundland in 1838. So they hosted a gathering of international presentations and invited this actress to come do the play. And I will say there was not a dry eye in the audience because she's so embodied, makes me tear up to think about it. She's so embodied I think sometimes when we think about heroines, we think they never faced any, or they just overcame every challenge. But she really understood. Nana suffered a lot of loss in her family. Her mother and father and sister, who were so important to her, all died when Nana was quite young and up into her early 40s. So she experienced a lot of loneliness and then the doubt about the challenges that she experienced in this new ministry, and this woman in the play really conveys that. So we're thrilled that she's going to be able to come to Dubuque next March and do 2 performances for us. She'll be at Clark University, has a magnificent stage that she'll be using, so it'll open up a space that's big enough for the public to be able to come and experience that story. And we even our chapel here at Mount Loretto has a giant lantern built into the structure's meeting of the 4 corners, so we're accustomed to talking about the lantern, but sometimes people don't understand always what that means. So I think having this woman do this performance for us, because she dresses in a black robe, cloak, kind of like Nana would have, and it'll be an opportunity to learn in the bigger community about that story.
And it's called Path Through the Dark, is that correct?
Right.
A very fitting title. I assume that's only something that you can see live. It would not be live streamed.
I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah, we'll let you know if that's.
Okay. Yeah.
Yes.
Jane could probably let you know that part.
Sure. I'll stay in contact with your communications office and we'll let people know. Or if they happen to be over in that part of the state, we'll get that information out as well. So I am really excited for your 150 years, and I love the 150 trees, and I'm sure you'll get more than that. And I hope that locations that had the presence of Presentation Sisters take advantage of that opportunity to do something in honor of your service to our different communities. I think that's great.
Oh, I agree. I think that would be a wonderful way to preserve the heritage and just a great remembrance of all the sisters who have served our diocese. And thank you both. It's unfortunate today that more Catholic people, and young and old, do not have the opportunities to encounter sisters. So I think that just makes it even more important for us to recognize that the time we had with you today is very much a gift. And so I do hope that people enjoy this conversation, and maybe even if they might not be from the diocese or may not have encountered one of the sisters in their time, that, even they are welcome, to participate in these celebrations as a way to enter into that. So thank you both for your time and for sharing with us not only the history of Nana and the sisters, but also your own presence in our diocese. We want to just thank all of those who have listened, all of our subscribers for following us, and we just can't wait for you to continue to join and listen. We have some wonderful guests coming up, and just always remember there's something to learn about the faith every day.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Illuminating Catholics, shedding light to understand the modern church. Follow us for more episodes on topics of the Catholic faith. For more diocesan news, visit lumenmedia.org.